singers.
Scholars.
It's good to be back. Oh, and poets, yes. This one is entitled The Buck Stops Here, and it's a jeu de mots, as you'll find out. People seem to be comfortable telling me their life stories. One of my willing victims was Ted Buchwald, who I had the pleasure of meeting with his significant other, as he described, Ecuadorian Mercy Medina, his soulmate and partner for the last 4 years. They met playing ping pong. I pinged and she ponged, he told me, tongue-in-cheek, in Cartagena, Colombia, where they approached me in the street, beckoning me over as they liked my style of dressing. Ted, at a sprightly 85, looked dapper in his colourful bandana, which he changed every day of his life, a man prepared for all seasons. I might add here that he didn't look a day over 55, by the way, and he was 85. An amazing storyteller and joker who loved to make willing listeners laugh. A collector not only of 40,000 butterflies, which he incorporated into his artwork of blown-up photographic butterflies suspended in space, but also one-liners, which he had heard over 40 years on the radio, cinema and TV. In addition to this gigantic collection of words, his thoughts of the power of positivity and happiness would come to him while soaping his lean and fit body in the shower every morning. Thus he would write these words down too. Words flowed effortlessly like running water. He assured me his longevity was in his genes, as his father Benjamin, known as Buck, to be Americanized, had lived to the grand age of 105, and Ted was out to beat Buck at any which way, even if he had to buck the system. A typical Jewish immigration story starting in Imperial Russia, the Pale Settlement, in 1899, when Ted's grandfather, Joseph Samuel Buchwald, a tailor, wanted a better life, fleeing from anti-Semitism, first to Vienna and then moving after World War I to the land of opportunity, America. He arrived at Ellis Island and changed one letter in his surname to sound less guttural. Buchwald became Buchwald. He came with some means and 4 children, including baby Benjamin, aged 1, born to become an all-American and proud of his country. God bless America, wrote Irving Berlin. Uneducated academically, young Benjamin, known as Buck, lived in the multi-ethnic area of Brooklyn called Bensonhurst, a mixed neighborhood of Jews and Italian immigrants at the turn of the century. The grandparents spoke Yiddish and probably never learnt English. Buck grew up, married Esther, and produced 3 sons, Ted being the eldest, born 85 years ago. Then the middle son, Arnold, and finally the youngest of the trio, Peter. The family was tightly knit, with no secrets, at least not in the early days. Young Buck was clever with his hands, fascinated by electrical components, alternating currents and high-frequency power circuits. He had been inspired by the doyen of electricity, none other than Tesla. He could repair anything and was proud of his knowledge. So many of the people in his neighborhood came to him wanting their cherished radios repaired that Buck thought he would open a small shop selling new radios. He loved the Art Deco angular lines. To Buck it was sculptural art with emitting sounds, and thus he began his intriguing radio collection. Obviously influenced by his father's passion for collecting and hoarding, young Teddy, as Esther would call him after President Roosevelt, would help his father in the workshop in the basement of their large family house. His grandfather, Joseph Samuel, had put aside some money to help finance Buck's dream business. But where? Not Bensonhurst for sure. Buck was reaching for the stars, and there was only one place which grew the crowds right on his doorstep in Brooklyn: Coney Island. Coney Island was a huge attraction in the summer months, comprising of 3 distinct areas: the 5-mile beach extending from Brighton Beach, Wonder Wheel and its famous Ferris wheel, and Luna Park, an amusement park featuring the famed Cyclone roller coaster, street performers and circus sideshow. In fact, between 1880 and 1945, Coney Island was the largest amusement park in the US. Buck was far-sighted and had become a collector of $100 bills, putting aside a bill every week. Later, in his heyday, he would hoard the bill every day during the summer season. He witnessed the advent of television in New York City on July the 1st, 1941, and decided to increase the size of his shop to incorporate the growing demand for TV sets. He even provided the Turner microphone for President Kennedy's speeches to be broadcast to the patriotic crowds. Ted, at 22, by this time having served in Korea and Germany for the US Army as a trained combat photographer in 1954, had moved to New York City, first working as a stylist for the well-known hairdressers to the stars, Mr. Kenneth. Later, he would open his own salon, where he got fired, when he got fired, taking his 300 best customers with him. He would tell his blue rinse ladies that beautiful things never grew old. Everyone adored Chatterbox Ted, and so his salon was a big success. He was Lee Remick's personal hairdresser, and even beautified Maria Callas and Sarah Churchill. His quote was, and is today, "Do what you like and like what you do."